Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the iconic Oxford Bookstore. Today, we have gathered here for a very special book launch, Autumn of Life, a collection of poems by Hoymonti Bagchi and published by Authors Press and organized by Ahava Communications. Hoymonti Bagchi is a corporate communication trainer, business storyteller, poet, artist, and independent researcher focused on creating awareness of indigenous culture, art, and literature. Her poetries and short stories have been part of anthologies like Disobedient Girls, Kolkata Diaries, and Philosophy Prodigy, and international literary journals and platforms including Scarlet Dragonfly. She was the winner of the National Poetry Contest by Namya magazine and received a special mention for her short story from Shades Publishing House. She is the co-owner of the creative firm based in Chennai, Art Lit. So thank you so much. Let's put your hands together for being present here for this wonderful launch. Now I will request our esteemed panelists to launch the book.
So glad. And this is a very special day for Hoymonti, so even more reason for us to be grateful that you're here to share this special feeling with her. I'm going to start with her. Hoymonti, you wear many hats, even as a wordsmith. So I'm going to ask you right at the start that what drew you to poetry? Was it the fact that you can share your emotions, bare your soul with a certain amount of anonymity? Or is it the genre that always drew you to it for its creative opportunities? What?
Okay, so to begin with, my first poetry which I wrote I was very young. I was probably in standard first, second, probably. So I remember I wrote this poem about a doll, my doll. Okay, so I used to be, really in love with this doll, and that was the beginning which got me published first time in an English daily, and that gave me such joy to share my life, a part of me, with everyone else, whoever is reading. So that was the beginning, and still I feel that it's a part of me in Autumn of Life as well. Each poem has been conceived, has been, I have birthed each poem, and it's a part of me. And it's a creative pursuit which makes me alive, which lets me speak in anonymity, of course. Now everyone knows that these poems are mine, but then it has this character which I have. So whenever you read a poem from this collection or any other poem written by me, you will know a part of me, a small part of me probably. So, yeah.
Lovely, because not everybody can give of themselves in their literary work. Sometimes it's as if you're writing from a third person's perspective. So I'm going to deal with that later again, I hope. The personal, the emotional portion that makes poetry yours. I'm going to go to Boishali. Boishali, you come from that dramatic world of theatre, where real live people play roles. They essay characters that they play and they assume everything that goes with the character. Here, poetry is more about low-key emotions. It's more about auto-suggestion. It's interpretation. It's imagery. There's so much more to it: imagination, interpretation, imagery, all of it. So, as a person from the theatre, as a thespian, what is it that you think you have in common with Hoymonti's Autumn of Life or with poetry in general?
it's something that I keep telling my students, and that is whether it's poetry or art or dance or music or theatre, the common thread that binds them all together is storytelling. So when I'm on stage, I'm telling a story. When I'm writing poetry, I'm telling a story. When I'm singing, I'm telling a story. It's all about the stories. It's the words. So whether you interpret them as a character on stage, or whether they're coming through you on the pages in the pages of a book, I think finally it's about telling stories and the human experience, especially, because I think that's what we're always doing, whether we're acting and sharing sharing other people's lives on stage and pretending to be somebody else, or whether we're sharing our own truths through poetry, especially. I think poetry is a very truthful and honest medium where you get to literally spill your guts onto the page. So it's all about sharing your personal experiences and in the larger frame of mind, and like having that join the human experience.
We just talked about gut-wrenching experiences built out on stage, etc. And there's so much that's personal here. You've got two pieces dedicated to your mother, Ma and Letter to Mom. And heartrending, the second one, and so touching. How easy or difficult is it to bear your soul? I mean, do you think that are people going to realize this is me? It's like a mirror I'm holding up for the world, that this is me, look at me? Or do you feel it's easier because nobody knows really whether the feeling's yours or you're writing about someone else?
So, I feel that while I was writing, I did not know that I would publish it. So, it was more of a, catharsis for me. During this COVID, when I lost my mother, I lost my father, the only thing which kept me going was poems, writing. And that was a medium through which I could express myself, and I did not think probably that I would let people read it. But then one day I thought that there was a dream. There was a dream of my mom used to dream, and with myself, that someday I will publish a book. And I felt that why not I collect all of these ramblings and whatever, and make it a little maybe beautify it a little and present it in a form of a book. So that was the journey of Autumn of Life.
So she didn't see you publish anything?
No.
Okay. But I'm sure she's watching from wherever she is. I'm going to move to Sunil, who is, as a really well-known poet yourself, somebody who deals with emotions and words through poetry. What is the commonality, if any, that you found between yourself and Valundi and her work? Because poetry, they say, is an emotion that has found its thought, and the thought has found words. And there's so much emotion, so much feeling in the poetry that you've written, she's written. For example, you've written about suicide and release and so many things. I mean, I find a pattern, even when you write about love. I think he writes a little more about love and romance than Hoymanti does. I don't know why it's not the reverse. This is the young one. Or maybe that's longing. But just expand on that. What do you find common?
Probably I write more about love because I've got more experience about it, about heartbreaks than she has. I think I've got many more years of it than she has. Let me take an analogy. In the office I work in, right outside, there's this huge sculpture which we have. It's made by a Moroccan French artist called Bruno Catalano. Now, I urge you to search him out on the net, Bruno Catalano. He's very distinctive, and all the sculptures he makes are where he has this man or a woman and some part is hollowed out. Okay? So the one which we have in our office, it's very strange why we have it in our office because it's got this man who's standing there. He's got a phone glued to his ear. He's got a briefcase. So obviously he's coming to office and the whole of this is hollowed out. The symbolism being that you walk into an office, you're so busy that what the office steals out from you is everything inside. So you know what happens when I read her poetry and I read mine, I think there's some hollowing out which we both talk about, you know. So I think there's this common platform which we both have as poets, you know, where we talk about things which, amongst other things, which may be hollowed out and we write about that.
And that's a little sad. You know, I thought poetry could be rejuvenating, and here's Sunil talking about hollowing out.
White hair, old age, more experience, many more heartbreaks. She's got so many happy poems
Yeah,
also.
she does.
So she does, yes.
So, Manjula, you're a journalist, and journalism is all about, it's meant to be adrenaline pumping, it's matter of fact.
Facts.
Yes, facts.
Dry facts.
Also, you know, very hard opinions, like you usually, a lot of times, want to drive the reader towards an opinion or thought or belief. Whereas poetry is more gentle, it's more suggestive, it's more sharing of yourself. How did you react to this book of poems by Navneet?
Okay. To begin with, see, I am a literature student. So I am honed in poetry and I've got a background. Now, journalism is my profession, being a journalist. And poetry is abstract. But you know, poetry can also be very visceral. Poetry is not just about love and not about, there are war poems, there are a lot of poetry which really hits you and makes you think, you know. So I think, you know, we must have this abstraction in us also to judge a situation. Say you're covering something and you're just giving the facts, you know. But at the same time, you must have some kind of a feeling of abstraction also to get to the point, you know, of what that person, the humanity, you know. So it's all about people and story. So how you are doing it is it's different ways of actually looking at, you know, people and humanity. So poetry can be beautiful, but like I said, it can also be, you know, if you see read some of the French poets and all, it can be extremely visceral and cruel and, you know, and also kind of uplifting. You know, we also have poetry which is, you know, calling out to defend, not defend the country as, you know, as a, to love your country and to know the, you know, the differences and to act like an informed person. So that's why I feel that a certain amount of abstraction which you get in poetry is also needed when you are reporting facts.
That's an interesting viewpoint. You know, you talked about the visceral feeling, the gut-wrenching feeling. And there's a poem here, I'm just going to read a few lines with the permission. It's called Hush. It goes something like this. Shh, you're not allowed. You are 35, but you are married. Ask for permission. Ask if you need to be carried. Shh, don't think you are not allowed. Don't order food. Don't you know you are supposed to cook? The color of your husband's shirt is still stained. Look. Sindoor, bindi, and those auspicious bangles define your chastity. Shh. Don't you dare remove them, but one fine day, I did rebuke them. I started asking questions, questions that matter, questions that rebuke the labels. I questioned my choices, my preferences, and voices, paving the way of my liberation. I just read up to that. So, this book also has so much that hits you in the gut, that makes you stop and think. But I want to ask her one question now, Hoymanti first. Autumn of life. You know, autumn is about. Okay, let me not interpret it. You tell me, why autumn of life?
Okay, so autumn has two meanings. One is withering out, losing a lot of energy, losing fervor, and another is rebirthing, re-energizing. And I feel that the book is, has developed in a way in which it is starting to, going through the process of destruction. And then gradually when you read through, you will understand that it's going through rejuvenation. And it ends in rejuvenation. And I feel that that's the circle of life we all are living at the end of the day. Anything in the world, in nature, everything has this circle in which it is birthed, then it is destroyed, then it rebirths again. So that is why I named it like this.
It's very interesting because you talk about resurrection and you talk about rebirth. Usually that is attached to spring. One would associate that with spring. But again, that is poetic interpretation. You've taken autumn as being a new phase of life, and that's interesting. And to take it further from there, yes, autumn is meant to be decaying, it's meant to be the destruction just before winter, which is totally bare and barren. But there is a lot of hope. There's a lot here. Yes, there are the tough ones, as Manjira said. But there's also a lot about rejuvenation, hope, revival, fighting back, a lot of that. And the language is very simple. It's unassuming, but it's beautifully laid out. And there's nothing obscure about her imagery. So as a teacher of English, how did you react to this?
Well, when I was reading her poems for the first time, excuse me, first reading there were, a bundle of words, cluster of imageries, her thoughts, her emotions, a certain amount of pain, probably a lot of pouring out. And as she's been saying that there's a gradual way of going up. That was at the end, towards the end. She was talking about glass panels and corridors. And as a teacher, I was thinking, like as teachers, I'm sure Boishak is going to agree with me, post-COVID, our worlds have all become windows. Even as teachers, we were sharing the screens for days and months. We have in front of us many teachers, I'm sure they're not going to disagree. We had the small windows where the faces were looking at us, we were looking at the faces, and then we go back to Hoymanti's poems, and she's talking about a koel, she's talking about a veranda, she's talking about a starlit night. When she goes up there, she looks at the stars. How many of us get to see a star-filled night? Yes, and as Sir said, it's always like, emptiness, that hollowness. It gives us a hope also to fill it up, isn't it? And that's what autumn is all about.
Very well, very well said. Hoymanti, back to you. I keep coming back to you. So, Hoymanti, what I did say at one time that poetry doesn't follow deadlines. Am I right?
So the process is wild. Why? Because it is conceived. I don't know from where it is coming, but on odd hours of the day or odd hours in the night, sometimes you just have this imagery, like a one-liner, like this one, the poem called Slave Station. Okay, so that imagery just came through in the middle of the night when I was trying to sleep. And many of the poems you will read here have come up like that, out of nothing. So it might be somewhere in the subconscious, I might have seen it somewhere, but at that time it might not have come out as a poem. But later on, it took its own time. It was a seed, that experience was a seed, and then it was watered, and it got the sunlight, and it grew, and then finally it came out as a flower or something. So that's the process I think I
You do
follow.
pen down your thoughts as they come, and then you wait to fine hone them.
Yes.
Sunil, what is your process of inspiration? Are there topics, and really I'm interested in this. Do you think that, okay, I want to write about something like the birds, the sky, romance, suicide, whatever, or it's just a thought that is just a thought that overtakes you?
You know, sometime back I read something which was really interesting. It said, it was talking about what poetry is. And it said, poetry is a naked woman, a naked man, and the distance between them. So, what it's talking about is an inherent tension which is there, What is there, what is going to be there, what are the possibilities. So for me, poetry is what is playing on my mind at that point of time, So I write in the morning. I always write in the morning. I walk and I write. So it's a very weird thing which I do, So I write here. So it's very easy to do. And I wake up at 5, so there's nobody out there, and I actually write there. So it's almost like a journal. First thoughts which are getting translated into. So what I find
And
is.
this is regular, every day
Every
almost.
day. I write every day.
Okay.
And 90% of what I write is absolute trash,
Yeah.
So, so some people would say that what I put out is also trash. but,
No, they wouldn't.
exactly, But then what happens is, I'm surprised sometimes at what comes out, because it's almost as if it's my hand moving and there's something which is coming out from my mind which is going into it. And what happens is, somehow images come and I realize that something is haunting me, and that is what is getting evolved into poetry. Sometimes for a month I write on the same theme, which I realize is something which is playing inside me, So it's really, really very momentarily put out, because I also don't know what happens. Rarely do I pick up a subject and say, okay, let's write on this. I do sometimes when someone in an anthology says, okay, write about refugees or write about something. So, I do sit down and write. It's
And
tough.
that point of, oh yeah, let's just go to ask him. It's tough, he said. So it's a discipline. You write in the mornings for a couple of hours maybe. It's very interesting, but I don't know if you were there. Jeffrey Archer spoke at the APJ Lit.
I missed that, yes.
He writes, it was awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping and very frightening. He writes for 4 hours before mid-morning, which is his breakfast time. And then he writes till lunch. Sorry, he writes for, 4 hours. Then he writes for 2 hours till lunch. Then he takes a bit of a break, Then he writes again for 2 hours, and then again in the evening before dinner. It's enough to make you think you will go mad. 8 hours a day minimum, every day of his life. He says, whether he travels or not, a rare occasion when he's holidaying, but that is the kind of thing I am sure poets don't have to do. So thank God you're writing poetry. Okay, I'll come back to you. Hoimanti, you write poetry, you write short stories, you paint. Of all these creative processes, which is your favorite?
I think poetry, anytime, it releases something in my mind, whatever I mean, I'm struggling about something. Maybe there's a process going on in my mind in which I'm planning something, but this particular way of birthing, I will say, poetry is the most favorite one.
Okay.
Andre, can I interject? In the same APJ, I had spoken to Dipti Navar.
Yeah.
She'd come out with her book, but what ended up was she recited a whole lot of. In fact, that session was for poetry. Sorry. So the same questions I asked her, but she's a painter also. not many people might know, but she's a wonderful, wonderful painter. So I asked the same thing, what is that instinct which drives you to paint or to write, and which is more important? She said something very nice. She said, I paint when I feel like it, right? But when it's something which is desperate to come out, you can't paint, you have to write. So that was interesting, yeah.
Also maybe because painting, there's a lot of abstract, the element of the abstract is too much there. Whereas with words are specific, no matter how vague you want to make the subject and not be pinned down. So, I wanted to ask Vaishali, you're the person who reads beautifully, does everything beautifully, and we talked about the hard-hitting ones, the dramatic ones. But there's a piece here called Bound in Love, which I found very dramatic, and it's a statement that Moimati's made. Would you like to read from it? It's page 33. Again, I found the ones where she's talked about women and breaking out and their issues the most powerful, other than the real emotional ones that she's come up with. Yeah.
Bound in love. When she walked around the holy fire and marked her forehead with vermilion, she knew what she was signing for. She was the prized possession of her parents, now being handed over to her new owners. She was educated. She believed in being independent, but she chose to subvert herself to the yearnings of the society, sometimes afraid of being outcast. Was the price paid for this social security too much? She chained herself by her own created illusion that she needed to abide by the ancestral belief, illusion that her partner needs to socially own her, illusion that she needed to give away herself for love. Love that will turn aggressive, love that will control her passions, love that will own her, that will mark his territory on her. A night later, when she came out of her nuptial room, tattered, bruised, black and blue, in the parts which were not publicly visible, she kept quiet, thinking that the aggressiveness of his love will become calm over time. Igniting the flames of passion and hope, she lives there still. Years have passed now. She climbs up the stairs to her terrace and watches the flying birds often. Often she gets jealous of the freedom they have when she looks into the mirror and finds her clipped wings chained by her own set of illusions.
Thank you so much. I just want to read who needs to be the superwoman of my house. What I do determines if people around me would be safe. I am the one who rules the destiny of my husband and his family. I am the pseudo-goddess in human trial. I, with my own powerful fasting, saved my husband's life for another year. The vermilion I adorn on my forehead is equally potent. If I stretch it till the end of my visible scalp, it guarantees long life for my husband. But if I don't wear vermilion or apply alta on auspicious occasions, I can bring bad luck to every member of my family. I own destiny, like jewels adorn a Hindu goddess. I am the face of the sins. I am summoned to the trials. Every time a mishap happens. Why didn't I stop? How could I let it happen, as I own the destiny? I am powerful, yet manipulated. I am the arbitrator, yet could be belittled. I am the center of the universe, yet captivated. I own their destiny, yet could be supervised. I am the goddess, yet can be assaulted. And that is so true for us. I thought it wonderful. That is so true for us. This ethos we have in West Bengal, in the East, of Devi worship, of Shakti worship. We put the goddess on a pedestal, but that's all that she's good for. How many women priests are allowed to worship that same goddess? Almost negligible. How many goddesses are brought tumbling down every day through domestic violence? It's very good for appearances. It's like dressing up a show window in a shop. So I really found that powerful. And I also wanted to ask you, Hamanti, that yes, some of it must be very personal, like your mother, etc. But are these sort of things you've seen or experienced?
So, as a woman, I think every one of us have somewhere touched this emotion or seen this emotion. Even men who, worship the goddess, whom we, really revere. But still we find that while she is at the pedestal, we don't treat our women like that. So every one of us, I think, we have faced this, we have seen this, experienced this, and this comes through experience, of course. And I really wanted it to be out there because I feel that there is a need that we speak about it, that we are living in a world where we are living a life of double standard. One is what we are portraying to the world, and one what we actually are, our true identity. Probably we don't even recognize, or sometimes that is somewhere in our unconscious mind, but it is still there. It's just that we need to identify that somewhere.
And I think I'm going to ask Monjira this. I think as women, in a way, we're equally to blame because we so quickly accept that ours is a secondary role, and we so quickly accept the guilt that is laid on us without trying to change it. We so quickly give in to that patriarchal way of living and growing up, even when those of us who have sons are bringing up those sons and conditioning their minds as to what they should be in future. And that I find is the saddest. And I think at a very young age, you've seen experiences, you've seen life, you've seen the way it happens, it's been so immediate for you. Have you seen, because this is a recurring theme in our books, women, the way they're treated, the way society looks at them, the demands that are made, the unfair demands, and have you seen it? How do you react to this part of your poetry?
See, of course, one sees the double standards, and one sees in newspapers also, see the way we have internalized that reporting. And there are people working against that, saying that,
We've just done away with that reporting. We don't report it most of the time.
Now you have less of reporting, say, on dowry and all, but that doesn't mean that doesn't take place. But if you see in the way it's reported when there is a rape, it is always mentioned in the way that it's sensationalized. The woman is raped. It is not a man who's raping it.
Yeah.
So the way it is reported also, it has come down. So there are groups working against that to get more gender sensitization and all that in reporting. So if that way one can change, then the mindset will gradually change. It is changing, but not so much, because newspaper has its own demands of circulation and all that. But here I find that poetry can help in these reflections. Reflections is something we all need. Even in reporting, we should have some kind of reflections. We should not just shoot off a copy. We should see and we should find out that how best we can get it across to the people. And that is my thing to young journalists also. Please reflect. This is very, very important.
Media has to sensationalize and sell women to get their ratings or get their sales. Once upon a time that would have been called pure yellow journalism, but it isn't so now. second point, I think, I don't know, is it us that we are so inured, that we are so hardened, or we are so deadened by what is happening all around, that when the most awful, the most unspeakable crimes happen against women, the biggest high point is a video being played. Why is it not that we are sensitive enough not to ever forward it, to reprimand it? Why should it happen in the first place? Why should people not comment, the people who lead the country? I would think that that, being more than half your population, is the most important, that you talk about the respect due to women. And I think what is important is poems like the ones she's written, maybe in a very small way, marginal, but it all adds up, they're drops in the ocean. Literature, the lessons that mothers, sisters give to their brothers, to their sons and brothers, things that people write, they all add up to sensitizing. As you said, that's so important.
No, but at the same time, their society is also evolving.
Yeah.
Like I said, there is a sense, even in advertising, you find that we do react to certain ads, though I know even in social media, it's all about glamour and all, but there is a lot of ads are taken down now, about showing women as a commodity.
Not to objectify.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess, there is a section of society which is also evolving, It's taking time, but it will. But literature and poetry and all, of course, play a much bigger role in that kind of, reflection.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, Sunil, I'll ask you as a poet, what kind of poetry did you like best here? And would you like to read something that you really liked?
Sure.
I don't think we have very much time. We'd like to open this to the house. So
Sure.
before I come back to you, and one last question to
Firstly, you read the poem which I was planning to read. Kutti.
Oh, sorry.
No, it is a lovely poem. Really, the book actually is a nice journey. It starts with some very soft poetry,
Yes.
a lot of nostalgia, and and then
Poems.
it evolves into serious and very thought-provoking poetry. So it's a lovely journey actually, and it kind of wraps it all very nicely in the end. So I think so far we've read some very serious poetry. So let me read the first one, which is very nostalgic and cute. So I think you can smile also then.
Cradle.
Yeah, Cradle. So it's called Cradle. Very nice. The red roses were strategically placed for a window and balcony view. Though the room had 4 walls, but it never bound anything. As if the walls didn't exist. Otherwise, how can there be equal sunlight inside out? Searing joy, flowing abundant laughter, the marigolds peeped through the bedroom window, greeting when I woke up in a cranky mood. Were they really flowers or attendants standing there to please me? I wondered, was I mimicking them when I peeped again and again through the kitchen window to make my mother smile? My stick figure drawings still adorn those transparent walls, breathing fresh air and bathing in sunlight, asking me, when shall I return again?
Very good. Okay, I'm going to ask you my second last question. We just talked a little while back, and you said what had touched you, what had resonated with you was a letter to my mom because of your life, your personal experiences. And I think that is the wonderful thing about literature also, but poetry especially, because suddenly you find a chord within yourself that the person writing didn't know about. But because she or he has written truthfully about experiences, emotions, you are on the same wavelength. So tell us a bit about that. Or would you just like to read a bit from the poem? Whichever. check.
Because I think some of us are going to read the book. So let's keep it for
Yes.
them. Well, I connected with her. I spoke to her and said, if you may excuse me, may I ask you, it's about a loss. It was very touchy to ask her, I said whether it was CA or is it Alzheimer's. She said it's Alzheimer's. And yes, it's we call it a disease, but it takes away a lot. Again, it's about hollowness, it's about emptying darkness, and we connected. We bonded that day. So yes, it's a journey, and she's been brave enough to talk about it. How she lost her mother in a very short time, and then the journey of her father going away, and she's been brave enough to sit with us here today and share it with all of us. I think that's, it's a salute to her also. Thank you for giving us the words.
I think what happens is when you talk about something like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or whatever it is, the saddest thing is not just the hollowness inside that person, the loss of that person, because that person is beyond knowing. But the saddest really is for the people left behind, the ones that person loved, the ones who love her, because it is heart-rending to have somebody there who has been such a vital part of your life, so important to you, to not even recognize you and to not be able to communicate what's pain
Slowly
or
it
need.
ebbs out. It
Yeah,
just goes
yeah.
away like an amber
Okay, we
bird.
will not talk about
Yeah.
it anymore. Because you do have to answer a last question before we take questions from the audience. I think we've overshot our time anyway. But I want to ask you, Hoymanti, on a more positive note, what are your plans? What are you looking at for inspiration in your future work? And are you going to stick with the poetic medium? How much do you like it? Is it good for you? And what are some of the reactions you've got from your readers? And how has that encouraged you?
I think poetry is a great medium, and I would certainly like to use it as a medium of expression. And currently, I think next I am working on short stories, because that is also something which really is very close to me, because you have these beautiful characters, you have a lot of theatrical, dramatic way of expressing, but poetry is always close to me, and I think it is going to be forever.
I'm glad. Just that last bit. Any reactions from your readers that has encouraged you or discouraged you?
I think my husband has been always
Encouraging. You
very
mentioned that.
encouraging. He has
your
always, yes, always he has stood by. Whatever I write, he would not hear it because he's not interested into poetry. And he would rather, say that, okay, keep writing. We'll get it published. You keep writing. So the constant, enthusiasm which he has and he gives into me, that is something which drives me always. Apart from that, there are friends, family, friends who have become family. They have always given, you can say, always encouraged me while I write, while I do what I want to do. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, but I have one thing that you can't just say keep on writing. You do need to read, and maybe you'll find something that you like there. So that's for the future. We're going to open it for a couple of quick questions. Do please ask her. She's here to answer. Anyone from the audience? Yes, please. You want to give your name?
I'm also a poet and a writer. So I have a question actually. This is a thought which just came to my mind. We talk about patriarchy, we talk about the subjugation of women in the hands of men. But sometimes we women are also equally guilty. If you look at a family, you will see sometimes the biggest problem is the mother-in-law. It is the mother-in-law who does not really allow the daughter-in-law to live a particular life or go out and work, even if the husband or maybe even the father-in-law is more, accommodating. So what is your take on that matter? How do we change ourselves? Because I think that's, it's a very big problem.
Okay, so to answer this, I would not say that particularly mother-in-law. I'm sure she's just given an example, but I feel that in case of women or men or either gender or any gender, we need to understand what what drives us. So while we are subjugating a particular part of the society, are maybe probably we are also a part of that particular society, that particular community that has been subjugated, but still the power structures, the hierarchies have always driven us to work out the power segment and get the power towards us. And this is just not in the political scenario, it is in day-to-day life. So if we see in the corporates also, in the family structures, in you can say in the literary world as well, in the media also, we have been facing this since I think a long time now, that when we are a part of this particular community, we say that okay, we are open and we find you as equal, but then inside somewhere we feel that okay, no, I need this power, I need to say, my say should be the last. So the power structures, I think we need to redefine that. The boundaries which we have created for ourselves, our society, our own identities are intertwined. So why, till we understand ourselves first, we cannot say anything to anyone else.
I want to say, Shorvani, right? The number of things I want to say in relation to what you said. One, when I talked about mothers bringing up their children right, that mother-in-law you're talking about grew up, let's say, with a son and a daughter. And this was her attitude, that the son is the numero uno in the family. The daughter has to do things for him. The daughter has to share in the housework, but not the son. So it's an attitude that is perpetuated over the years and generations. She was probably imposed upon by her mother-in-law. That is absolutely no excuse to say, now I must have my fun. So it's sensitivity, it's education that you need. Secondly, when Hoymanti said that we women also, we need to understand what exactly the limits. We have to decide fairly early on that on what terms are we going to relate to people. You talked about women being unfair to men. Yes, it does happen. Far less frequently than men oppressing women. Now, it will keep on happening because for all wrong over the centuries to be righted takes a long time, Shorvani. So you are going to have instances of extreme and out of focus reactions. But I think the thing to do is from a very young age, if all women are conscious that we are not just giving our daughters messages, we have to give our sons those messages, teach them. And we have to first believe in ourselves. Don't accept behavior that your daughter or son is going to see and think this is okay down the line.
Somebody has something to add to
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Yeah, I once took an interview of Gloria Steinem, the feminists, and I told her that at home in India, we sort of, we have daughters-in-law and then the mothers-in-law, and gradually the mothers-in-law play a very big part, and we accept it. She said, always remember that no role, all roles should be either deserving or earned. And I feel that's it, Keep that in mind, that every role, whether it's your mother-in-law, father-in-law and all, that role should not come with entitlements. So it's up to the woman to kind of also take the younger woman if she feels she's being bullied. But a bit of it will come from financial independence, yes, but even otherwise, that she has to also stand up for her rights and not take it lying down.
So, if I may suggest, please do meet my wife. She has evolved considerably. She completely subjugates me.
Don't believe a word of it. Don't believe a word of it, but still.
Balancing it.
Though it sounds very nice to a lot of people, I have to say.
If I may just add one thing, I think it has a lot to do with our social conditioning also. You know, we grow up seeing our mothers being subjugated
That's
and
what I
we
said.
sort of, accept that perhaps this is the way of life. And even
But
that
that's what I
mother-in-law
said,
who is
yeah.
oppressive, she also has been conditioned in a particular way. So to get rid of that baggage will not happen, as you rightly said, in a day. It's going to be quite a long process.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, that just because you were imposed upon, pushed around, you should have that in you to become sensitive to what you should not be doing. You need to do that. Thank you. You have time for just one more question. Yes.
So this is a poem,
Your name?
domestic. I'm Sara Rahman Sheikh,
Domestic warrior.
yes,
Yeah.
English literature honor student. Yeah. So this is domestic warrior, and it really struck me. These few lines. She was the survivor who had lost her own unborn. She was the batch, and she was the tone. Nobody talks about miscarriage. It's very hushed, but I think people should more often because it is common in women. And the society, I don't know for what reason, they just tend to think it as if it's a shameful topic. But it should be, the awareness should be spread. So the question is what are your views on this? And did you have to ever experience this sensitive event?
Okay, so I have not. Thankfully, I have not. But it is based on a friend's story. She is actually exactly like what I have portrayed over here. And absolutely, I believe so that people don't like to talk about it. It's a taboo. And I think those topics which we don't talk about, that creates more gaps and it gives opportunity to subjugate. And that if we talk about it, we are open about it, then who will subjugate whom? You're all same, right?
And I think it should be talked about more
I
because
think
we,
sorry, I'm just interrupting. I think today in an urban setting, Sarah, right? Sarah, in an urban setting, it has changed a lot. Miscarriage is not a taboo today. But yes, in rural settings, the woman is often blamed for it without anyone knowing. Just as till not so long ago, whether you had a girl or a boy was always blamed on the woman. Change the wife. We're not getting a son. And it was always the man. Now we know that for many years, that it's the man who determines the sex of the child, the gender. So,
Also child, I don't have a human baby, but I have a lot of fur babies. So many people ask me that why didn't you conceive? You should. Okay, so I say that I don't have the need to conceive because I have already conceived so many puppies, so many kitties. So I think that is also a taboo. If not only if you have a child, what gender? Again, gender comes, and then if that's a boy child, then obviously privileges go there. And if somehow miscarriage happens, and here in this poem, I think miscarriage happens because of the domestic violence. So that is not spoken about.
and lack of nutrition.
Lack of nutrition, yes. And childless marriage is also a taboo.
actually yes, because woman is emotionally bounded gender, I feel, and that is the strength of the women. We women can have we have a high emotional intellect. Naturally, it comes. And when a miscarriage happens, it's not only the emotions that is a battle for us. It is the hormones, our own body going against us. It is a painful, even deadly. It's a deadly experience. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think time's up, and thank you before they take over. Thank you so much, Vaimunti, for sharing this with all of us.
Thank you so much.
Really a pleasure. Thank you, Boshali, as always. Dr. Sunil, the elder guru here, and Munti. Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you. We have a pretty wonderful audience now.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you, Shush, Mona, who couldn't be here, Shushruto, and Mona of Ahava, who organized this. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us. The copies of the book Autumn of Life is available in the cash counter. Whoever want to purchase, you can purchase it from the cash counter and get it signed by Vaimunti. Thank you, and please join us for some refreshments. Thank you.